listen more than you speak. Listen, go make it centered on their experience. Be a facilitator over an instructor. Create an environment that the art thrives in. Because when that art thrives, the art teaches us all. The music will teach you. It will show you, it will guide you, it'll show you your next steps, it'll show you what you need to improve on, it'll show you what you're really good at. The art will trust in the process and trust in the sound and the art and the groove. Trust in that.
Welcome to Pass the Baton, empowering students in music education. Here, we amplify the voices of music teachers around the world who are passing the baton and creating environments where the music students are empowered. Together, we can help students transform from passive consumers to vibrant creatives. Welcome back to the Pass the Baton podcast. My name is Kathryn Finch.
And I'm Theresa Hoover. Thanks for joining us today. Okay, so Kathryn, today's guest is a little different in that they're not a teacher who's traditionally in the classroom, but has done a ton of work with students and working with music teachers and all kinds of great stuff. So what did you think about our conversation with Y?
Yeah, I think immediately the first thing I was thinking is like his energy is amazing.
Yes.
And that really draws you in with him. And I think one of the biggest things I got from him was like the power that a teacher has of listening to their students and
Absolutely.
understanding their students.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciated hearing kind of his journey as a musician, right? Because even that was not the same journey I had, right? Going through school music and private lessons, yada, all those things. So hearing about his journey, how that got him where he was, and then how that has informed his work with students and teachers and, everything moving forward.
And his story in sharing with music educators that if we are trying to empower all music students, we have to really think about how we're going to structure our classes so that we reach all music students.
Yes, absolutely. And that might mean doing things a little bit differently, but that's okay.
Yeah, and it might feel uncomfortable and it might, but all of those things, you take little steps forward every day. You can change, your approach to reach all students.
Right. Before we get to today's interview, if you're ready to make powerful shifts towards student-centered teaching, explore the Pass the Baton Coffee Club. Members get an exclusive deeper dive audio extra and a Reflect and Act PDF download after every episode, plus access to our full resource library.
For more personal support, our premium tier offers direct access to Kathryn and Theresa in a private Voxer group. Visit buymeacoffee.com/passthebaton to learn more and join.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We are super excited to be connected to today's guest. We're here with Y. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, honored to be here. Thank you guys for having me.
We were introduced by a mutual friend and former podcast guest, Stephen Cox, and Stephen said, you've got to get this guy on. Wow. We're gonna love him.
So, shout out to Steve. Yo, that's the guy. That's the guy. Good guy.
Yeah, just in the first couple minutes chatting, we're very excited.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much, guys.
Why could you just start by introducing yourself a little bit and telling us about your background?
Yeah.
What your role is in music education?
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Well, first of all, the full name is Yogi, if you need to know. So even that is a musical story I was telling earlier. I got a 4-letter name. I cut it to Y to be monosyllabic to just have that quick staccato hit. Everything I relate to it is music. So I feel like we came through sound. The first thing that develops the human embryo is a heart, right? That's the first organ that's there. Boom, boom. Right? We start with a tempo, we start with a groove. So I think everyone literally is born a musician and born an artist on a deep, literal, physical level. And somehow we make this disconnect. So just growing up, I'm from New York City. My family's from Guyana. I'm from Jamaica, Queens. I now live in Astoria. So I was in a culturally rich environment. My music from the Caribbean, grew up with just, a lot of listening, DJ cousins, and uncles in the church, people that just, sound was just rich, loud sound. Yo, people screaming out the window. It was very poetic in a song. I always say the first four bars was the alphabet: A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. And even right there, you got some gospel that I brought into that.
Mm-hmm.
I remixed the melody of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, which is follows that. It was just something about rhythm and rhyme. And when things were taught to me, that was kind of what played my eardrums and then sonically kept in there. Started as a writer, writing poetry, writing essays and things like that. And unfortunately, in my public schools that I grew up in, there wasn't much music. I got one class with not even a recorder, the flutophone, which was even cheaper. Then they couldn't afford the recorder, so they had the flutophone. And it was, okay, put your finger on this, immediately just told what to do in music, but put it in, and I was all right. I was able to follow the rules, this and this. They showed me the basics of, quarter notes, half note, whole note, eighth note, and then said, okay, these are the notes, figure this out. Here's the rhythm of it. And what I had to do to kind of remember the rhythm, I just remember if it was like four quarter notes, before I would play it, this was just instinctive. I'd be like, I would try to like internalize, and then I would go and do it. And they'd be, hey, what are you doing? I was just trying to hum it in my head or remembering how it was heard. And they'd be, hey, what are you doing? Because, you got a 30-minute class, the teacher's coming in, they had to unload the flutophones. It was already a stressful environment. So it wasn't the teacher's fault, but I was just trying to figure it out how to get the task. But I wanted to remember and internalize it because I knew if I was to play it, now it's just adult looking back. If I was to play it tight, I would need to build a relationship with these notes, with this sound. So that exposure did not lead me to playing. It was a thing that happened maybe for a semester. Then I think there was a little general ed music, and I went to audio school actually. So I ended up pursuing career more as an audio engineer. Went through some troubles in high school, just figuring out what I want to do. But I loved art, and then got into just like learning recording. So shout out to the Institute of Audio Research where I went. Then I went to Electric Lady. I heard great record D'Angelo Voodoo by this amazing collective of musicians. And I was hearing the bass lines. I was like, I want to go where that was recorded. And it was in Jimi Hendrix studio. So I think listening and deep listening before I ever played, I was making beats first, sampling. So listening to music was always crucial. Then, just coming up in New York and hip hop culture, the punk movement was here, the salsa movement was here. They are these eclectic enclaves of music, including jazz, that was all spread around. So I'm making beats. I'm in that era. I'm going to audio school. I'm learning how to record. I got a studio. I got a mic. I'm just playing by ear at this point and just figuring it out. And what happened in schools, as I was mentioning earlier, is a lot of our big schools were broken down into smaller schools and charter schools. So when I wanted to get back to the community and do something around arts, graduated audio school, worked 60 to 80 hours in the studio, learned a lot, but I was like, I'm working 60 to 80 hours, can't pay New York City rent. What am I going to do? And a teacher asked me, said, hey, you're really good energy, and I love the way you explain music, and you have a deep connection to it. My school doesn't have a music program. Would you come in? I was hosting jam sessions and open mics at the time in Brooklyn. So I had a monthly, and we'd always pick a theme, like it was a clothing drive or something that was community based. So I'd say, okay, let's help out. So I went in there, and then she asked me to volunteer one day. Shout out to South Bronx Preparatory in the South Bronx on was it 148th and 3rd Ave. And I went one day, and I was like, wow, they really want to make music so bad, and they're OD talented. So I was like, well, what can we do to help? And, they had a couple of us just volunteer once a week. And that was my first journey into education. I had to go through the monster of the DOE. You got to get fingerprinted this. You wait 6 years for a check. It's insane. And I just really got passionate about understanding. And then I realized, wait a minute, this student doesn't learn like this student. So even if I was teaching like what the chord was, I'd usually start with, what music do you like? We listen.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, okay, if they identify it, maybe they like that pulsing 4/4 kick. Boom, and I'm like, okay, that's what they're being drawn to. Or maybe they like the whirl of the synthesizer that is doing an arpeggio. The language always came, and the knowledge came by me figuring out why I use the question mark in my name, how to explain it. And because I knew that this person would pick it up by ear, this person needed to show them visually, this is where it is. And then this was it. Other people, they gravitated, oh man, I have an uncle in the church to show me guitar. This one could sing with perfect pitch. It was incredible. And I was like, I just saw all these varied ways that people approach music. And I honestly went to help, and I got taught by students, and I got taught by problem solving. And because of that, I have a unique journey. And then one day when I was working at Sam Ash, uh, had a great mentor. He was working construction, came in with paint and dirt on his boots during his lunch break just to play some amazing. And at that time, I was making beats. I had my music on CD in the speakers, so when someone would test the speakers, they'd hear my music. It was a good marketing tactic back then. So he would be like, "Oh, what are you doing?" He'd jump in the room. You go. Then I had like, let's say I had a 2 chord progression. I think I remember it was F to C, and then now I know like depends on what key you're on, what these chords do, right? So there's all relationships. So I'm almost gonna give these side notes. So he's listening to what I'm doing. He said, "All right, stop it." Picks it up by ear quickly. I was like, "Whoa, what kind of sorcery is this? What kind of magic is this?" He said, "Oh, but you could go to this. You could go to this." He's saying all this. He's a jazz guy and a gospel guy. So he's doing all these things by just hearing me do like a 2 chord progression loop. And I'm like, dude, this is insane. Like, what? And he's like, yeah, but no, you interesting pocket. You're on the, now you're on the and. And I was like, okay. Now I know, like, just kind of the music I listened to was syncopated. So I had that pocket. And that was natural to me. And he's like, but man, you got good taste in what you're doing with this. I like how you put the bass together with these drums and this and that. And he was explaining how the instruments talk to each other. Now I can break it down. And that was a very pivotal moment. And he goes, I got something for you, man. And I was like, well, what can I do to get like that? I was like, show me the goods. Give me the goods. What you got? So then he goes, okay, close your eyes. That's the first. And then he's like, I'm going to press a note. Boom, press a note. He's like, find it. Boom. I'd make mistake, but I'd find it. And then he's like, you ever heard of do, re, mi? I was like, yeah, do, re, mi, fa. So he's like, this is the do, re, mi. He did it in 8. Now I'm breaking it down, but he didn't say this, but he did it in a key, did the major scale. So he had me going, da, 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 da. He showed me it. And then he's like, remember that. And then he's like, now I'm going to press another note. Bim, okay, da, 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 da. And then he's like, close your eyes, find a note. He's like, put your finger on it, check it, and then, see if you get it, and then just do do, re, mi, going up and down. That's it. That's all he said. He said nothing more. And he's like, I'm going to come back. And he's like, I'm going to see if he's like, just do that, and that's it. He didn't tell me about a fifth, a fourth, a this, a this. He didn't even say major scale. He just said, close your eyes, find it, do, re, mi, up and down. I was like, okay, this is interesting. He can do all this. And I was like, what? I'm trying to make a connection in my mind. What has this got to do with this? And how's this going to take this little idea I have into something? So I was like, okay, I did it. So every day I'm looking over my shoulder. I'm like, this guy's going to come. I got to be ready. So this is also, I think, an intrinsic knowledge that any creative has when you're called to do something, right? So I'm over here doing it, getting it as best as I can. Sure enough, the day comes. He comes in, boom. He's like, you ready? I'm like, let's go. He already sees. He's like, okay, this guy's confident about himself. Now I was like, goes in, same thing. I wasn't perfect, but I did the task and I got through with it. And then if I hit something wrong, he didn't scold me. He just said, listen to it again, find it, and go up, down. That's it. And then, we eventually, in whatever time it was, luckily I didn't get fired, but we got through all 12 keys at different points in different octaves, just moving around again. And he throws the bench on the floor and he goes, you don't play? You don't know? I'm like, no, I'm really making beats. I dabble a little bit on the keys, but I was like, I don't really, I just kind of feel what I like. And he's like, it's a crime. He's like, you didn't take music in school, man? Because he's like, I've taught lessons and I've asked people to do this, and they've 10 years later, they don't do it. And he's like, you do, he's like, you're a musician, man. He's like, and I was like, he kind of anointed me because he's like, no, he's like, come to my house. I'll give you lessons for free. And I was like, wow. And I wasn't good. I didn't do it. So I was just like, what is this? And he was just because he saw the path. Now I'm jumping timelines here, guys. So bear with me on these stories, but that relationship. And then he showed me, and then he said, okay, this do, re, mi is called a major scale. And he's like, this. Then he showed me all the intervallic relationships. Okay, if minor second, major second, he's like, it's just a name. He's like, if you go, go a half step up, it's going to be called major second. You go after, it's going to be called major seventh, and then this and this, and then 2 steps this way, okay, it's a dominant, some of that. And then he's like, don't worry about it, just feel it more, and then we'll go into it. But then, so he taught me how to feel it and then identify it, because, it's a lot of what the heavy jazz cats are. And then I just got into a point where I got obsessed, started playing a lot keys first, and then the guitar came into my life because I realized I could transpose once I mastered the bar chord shape. And I was like, I'm a lefty, but I chose to play righty because I was like, I'm gonna use this left hand in a certain way. And I realized that was also approach to it. And then the acoustic guitar is the most portable instrument, so I can carry it. I can figure out a bass line, I can figure out a chord progression, and I don't have to plug it in like a keyboard. So later on, that became what I played the most. And then after doing those workshops and going into those things as a volunteer, I got hired, and they started paying me to do after school programs, and then became a DOE vendor, which connected me to the system. And through that, and then teachers and organizations that did music programs would hear and see the musical performances I did with students, and they would be blown away by the art. And then they would ask who did, and I was like, oh, and I would always say it was the kids. I never took credit for it. But then they asked me, and then after I got into a teaching artist role, didn't know the name of it at the time, several schools, several sites, for whatever reason, highly rated, highly recommended, highly productive music. And then they eventually asked me to teach other teaching artists. And then the music teachers came in, which is probably the hardest part, of what it is. And then led from writing curriculum to PD. And then also studying these things because, I'd say when people go back to classical, you have to go back to indigenous music and drum circles and understanding the relationship that people build with those notes. The same way that, shout out to Professor Keyboards, aka Ray Romaine, who was the guy who showed me that way. And I was like, if it wasn't shown to me that way, I probably would have never got it. And he accepted me for where I was at. He didn't try to mold me into something. So like I didn't have that traditional music experience. It was only on my little flutophone thing. But yeah, that was it. I know the stories get deep, guys, but they're all interconnected. And then from there, curriculums got nominated for something. I don't really think about that stuff. I think of how can I learn more about it and learn more about it from explaining it. So if you have a deeper understanding of it, and especially more beginner people, they teach me so much about music. They approach it in a way that I never think. So just keeping the clay wet and being of service through the methods that I can say were shown to me and were taught to me and were experienced within my being, and then bringing what's within me out, which is what we do as musicians. We internalize sound, and then we bring it out so that we could put our color on it. We could put our swing on it. That's the goal. You want to hear the person, not just the notes, and that's what happens with a great person. And that journey's 15 years now, which is incredible. And I've never worked a traditional job since. I've come up in different ways, but I'm a freelance artist, and I use the term artivist, using art to activate my organism to its highest potential. And that's what I want to help other people do, find their relationship to it, because sound is intrinsically back to that initial heartbeat that you're there. And it's a birthright, I think, for everyone to become a masterful artist and musician. It's an opinion, but it's capable if you're willing to dedicate yourself to it, no matter where you are in life or what background you come from, or how we hear things very particularly, differently. So the world never says we have enough singers, piano players, this, because everyone can bring something unique. So how do we bring our voice forward? And that's what kind of led me into the music education journey, just being a permanent student. So I hope that answered it. I know I went all over the place. I'll take a sip of the
Yeah, that was a great journey.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I love how you described the way that you learned, because it sounds so natural.
Yeah.
You were listening, you were doing, you were experiencing, and then he went, "Oh yeah, by the way, that's a major scale."
Yeah, he gave it to me after. And, I would be
Right.
what they call a neurodivergent or OCD, ACD, or whatever letters they'd probably put on my brain, which a lot of, I think, artists and creatives are. But like I just said, I'm going to learn it in different ways. And when I had to show it to the kids, what I was taught, some were just, they would look at the piano, and if I went the whole half, it clicked in them. And I was like, I just got to give it to them in a way that clicks to them. How? Some were really technical and they wanted to know how it looked on the staff paper. I would go to musictheory.net and I'd show them, FAC, every good boy does fine. You want to do it this way? No problem. Like I was with the smoke, and I never shamed anybody if they said, I want to play like this, or I like this kind of music. I was like, it's sound, I never judge it, and I was just like, what do you want to get out of it? And then eventually I got moving away from covers to originals, because I was like, how can you create something? And I just feel like there's not enough composition in music education either. There's a lot of just the one type, which might be 5% of the, just here's the piece, get the piece down, nail it down, play it as pitch perfect, which has great technique. Spoke on Nina Simone and Bill Evans. The classical stuff is something I really, fingering and structure. I took some things from a classical guitarist and classical pianist to step my training up. It's essential. I think you get to technique should serve story though. That's the other part,
Right.
like what's your intention behind the note? What are you putting in? And I think that takes like a decade plus to get to. So, I want people to build that relationship long enough with music
Yeah.
because that's when you start to get to the good stuff, when you can make sure your amygdala is not fired off and you're not triggered by making art. You just express yourself in a deep way and then it starts to teach you forever and ever. It's a bottomless pit.
Yeah. I think it took me a long time as a teacher to get away from the idea that like, no, this is, putting the sheet music in front of the kid and
Yeah.
saying this is music as I, point to it. And I'm just so appreciative of how you're talking about how we have to feel it. It's part of us.
God,
It's the emotion, it's the sound, it's all of that. So
God.
when we try to just shove a piece of paper in front of kids and say this is music, we're missing something. But like you acknowledged, some kids do really want that and need that. So we just have to think about how it can't be just one way.
Yeah, it's not an either or, it's this and that.
Right,
And
right.
it's what do you gravitate? I got into the site read later, because then I was like, I really want to understand what these classical composers were doing. I started looking at them.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
But you want to come to it when you're coming to it in your own way so that you
Right.
feel
Yeah.
because when you got that intrinsic motivation, you're gonna do more versus some kids I know they were forced into piano lessons at age 0 and they're like
Mm-hmm.
this was the traumatic thing I had to do for this. Or so I didn't want to be there. I wanted to go play sports. And then I got shoved into and then they're like, yeah. And I was like, well, how'd you learn that? Oh, yeah, I did that for 12 years every day and this and this. And I was like, so what happened? Oh, yeah, I haven't played in 15 years. And I would hear those stories and I thought I lost them. I was like, I must have been blessed because some people get traumatized through literal music. And then it just becomes this mechanical thing. And then they'll go and they'll still remember how to play for Elise but that's it. Like they became the jukebox, and now it'd be like what AI will do. They can play it, they remember it, but there's no sense of can I create? What
Yeah.
am I feeling? How am I gonna, like? And I always deviated from it, so I didn't know, but it was accepted in what I do. And once again, it's not this or that; it's this and you
Yeah.
take it all in, you see what you can gain from it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. So when you think about working with teachers, right? So I know there's
Ooh,
there's a million different ways we could go here right now.
yeah, yeah,
I've seen on your website you talk about something called cipher pedagogy. I've seen you
yes,
talk about
yes.
creativity. Like, how can we? Where should we go now? Where should we talk
Yeah,
to
yeah. I
these
think
to
we
these
could go with the
listeners?
cipher. The cipher
Okay.
is, comes from the Arabic word safir, which was for zero. And the idea that I really resonated with is everything starts with silence, right? Even before you count them in, right? It's that rest
Hmm.
note. That's what gives the groove silence. Because we're not, oh, no, 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 no. It's, hey, how are you? I
Mhm.
naturally thought of the negative space first in music. I don't know why. Because it was like bum, 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 and that's the groove. I would think of when do I turn the switch off? Not what, no, it was just kind of the way my mind worked. And what I noticed about that with music teachers, because you get taught a certain way, especially if you go to work, I'm sure you guys know as formal educators, like they get ran through the ringer, especially when you go music ed you go through, and this is where I was like, oh man. So a lot of them usually started going to the music teachers, and shout out to all the music teachers in the country and in the world. A lot of them started with the love for music, right? Which
Yeah.
we were going in,
Right.
but because maybe they had artistic aspirations and maybe say, oh man, well, you know what? I'm going to get a safe job. Now I'm going to go to school for music ed, or maybe they wanted to teach and share that experience that they had. But the problem is it really only focuses, if this is whole screen is a percent, it focuses on this little tiny part of what the whole spectrum of
Yeah.
music and sound is. So I was like, oh man, and what I help them a lot with now is unlearning. Like, how can you create an environment? A lot of times they're
Mm.
scared because they feel the environment is too chaotic. But if you look at the
Yeah.
natural thing, is like we balance between our left and right brain, which is chaos and structure. And that's like the balance between playing something perfectly tight and then improvisation, right? And
Mhm.
once again, it's not, there is time to hit, like there's time for that. And there's also time to move. I love the movie Soul that came out kind of
Mm.
recently. It was so good about how his mother was like, look, you're gonna be a full-time person because the job, he wanted to be a musician, but then he's a and then his mom said, look, you're and then he's like, that's not what I want to do. I want to go and I want to play. And then when the soul comes in and goes in, it's funny where he starts getting so obsessed with technical and technique, and he starts to pick up these inanimate objects, the sun beaming through the sky, And, when I studied the greats that I love, whether that be Coltrane or, Bill Evans, like they start getting to this place where music becomes, even though they're technically very proficient, it becomes this storytelling. I'm big on Miles Davis's journey, who's also first chair trumpeter. Some of my mentors come from that school that were taught by Jackie McLean. And then, my other mentor, Alan J. Palmer, shout out to one of my great music mentors. He goes, why? When you go in, he's like, who taught me? Smoking his spliff. He's like, yo, Jackie McLean taught me. I played with Jackie McLean. Man, he goes, Jackie got it from, Miles Davis. So when people ask you where you got your music from, you say Miles and Davis. And I was like, damn. So like, I'm also very blessed for my environment to show me it and the eclectic mix that is New York. And I always feel like I'm at ground zero, not even ground one. And that mentality has allowed me to just keep my clay wet. And that's what I offer the teachers. So back to the pedagogical tools, I look at these things, rebuilding the classroom. This is what I did with Steven, to look like a rehearsal and recording studio. How do you create an environment where music thrives and people's tastes are there? Because art can't be judged the way that a math test can be judged. It's not meant to be, because it's like arguing with someone over their favorite food, Like I can't tell Kathryn what's her favorite, or you to me. No, we're supposed to, hey, I like this because it had a nice little crisp, node to it, or this, or I like this flavor because it was super fizzy and bubbly, right? And we talk about, oh, well, what's up with this? And we exchange ideas. We don't say this. So it's a place where mistakes are welcome, but also I always say the music will come out slapping. That's one thing that I say. That speaks. That's why they were always like, how did you do this so fast? And I said, I didn't do it. I created a space. And that connects to the Latin word facile, to be a facilitator versus an instructor, to facilitate an environment, like building a garden where things could thrive. And then people come in and they add to that garden like stone soup. So that's what I work with a lot with the teachers, because they've been gone through this whole rigorous journey of this is the way it is. So when they see something outside of that, their minds and their amygdalas get fired off. I had to do a lot of psychological training, and they get triggered. So if a student's doing this or noodling on the instrument or doing this and this, which is what's going to happen if you're a kid that's been sitting in a classroom with fluorescent lights from kindergarten to this, and you're in middle school, you're gonna be ADD'd out or whatever. Like, it's just not like, especially when the weather's nice, there's gonna be certain things that just don't work in that environment. But how can you all coexist? Just like an instruments can exist in the orchestra, and all those things. And how can these things play their part? And how can we as a collective agree on something, whether that's one note, one groove? And I'm heavily rooted in mastering simplicity and keeping things simple and focused. So KISS is the acronym used, keep it sweet and simple. So everything I do has to be brought back to a very simple level. So teachers, it's usually about creating circular-based formation. And then within the circular-based formation, allowing ideas to come out in there, agreeing to a groove, agreeing to something, could be one chord, one note, and then locking in pocket. Once we're all locked into, we all like, my story, like, yo, where's the one at? You know what I mean? Can't find the one like a unicorn out there. So like, unless we're all on the same page on what we're doing, we're we can have our perspective on it, but we need to know that this is what we're at. And it could be a bar, it could be a piece, it can be as macro as micro as we want. So I'm always telling them, that's why they kind of brought me in, because they'd bring me in for this and this. But I said, no, I want to reformat the classroom. I don't want to be this cool class that's secondary, because I felt like it was shoved to the side. And I was like, nah, this can change band, this could change choir, this could change orchestra. This is the way it's taught. And also, I want them to learn everything, sight reading, complex harmonies. Like, I want the smoke. So like, when they tried to put me in as a side thing, I was like, nah. And then when they knew, I knew, like I said, B flat sus2 sharp 9, know what a sharp 11 is. It's just a fourth raise, and a sharp 4 is a flat 5. I know all that stuff. And I just kind of, they would think I don't know it. I'm just super spam. I'm like, no, I understand all of that. And it's because I have a brain that's different, but I had time to build those relationships. I went through 5 years where I got heavily obsessed with this classical terminology. What's pizzicato mean? What's this, right? That just, the quest and the thirst for it leads you down the path. I want to know when they say, bring that glide in, the glissando and all these things, right? These are just ways of expressing emotions and feelings, and they're just words to describe it. And what's mainly important in music is that you could do it, you could replicate, emulate, and then you could recreate and have it as a tool in your toolkit. Then once you have it in a toolkit, the world is yours. But it's a toolkit for you to paint. It's a palette. It's not the end all be all. So I just say, remember, you're creating a space for them to cook, for them to paint. And if you take that away and say this is wrong and this is this, it actually really defeats the purpose of what art and music is supposed to do, which is supposed to reflect the deepest things to society. And that can't only happen with authenticity and intention. So, back to logistics, curriculum writing, PDs, anything I'm needed to do, and whatever I was called to do, I learned how to do and adjust, just like it was in music. So I'm blessed that I truly do not know why I get asked, but I just do it. I show up just like this podcast. I was like, I got some time today, let's go, and we show up, right? That's half the battle, and show up authentically. And it's okay. If I don't know what this, or I'm playing a harmony, and when I used to play sometimes instead of unison, I'd play the fourth or fifth. And I was like, wow, always fourth, fifth, and the octave seem to be, and then Miles said those are the butter notes, the ones that will always kind of fit. But then I was like, okay, well, how do I deal with these tritones and these minor seconds? And how do I involve that by sounding sweet? And how can I play with any note being valid? So it's a permanent journey. And I tell the teachers, and I actually help them become more of artists, because my way of thinking is all over the place. It's omni, but it's also rooted in there. I can always come back to the one, just like I'm doing in this conversation. I can always relate it back to the question, because I'm not straying too far. So even though it's improv, it's deeply rooted in structure, discipline, focus. And that's what it is. And, you got to let your students teach you, because that's how I was taught as a teaching artist. They taught me. I was okay. I'm not going to lie, but they got me from being good to great. And it was because, no, I want to do this. I don't like that rhythm. I want to do this. Boom, 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 boom. I want this sound. They'll tell you what they don't like quicker than they'll tell you what they could like. So I had to be an investigative musician, a searcher, and that being a producer and a composer and an arranger. And those are the skills that I needed to deal with in high school kids and middle school kids and elementary. And then I had this vast experience around all ages, because I was moved to different sites, different places, and now different countries. I'm able to bring back my goodies and say, hey, what do you need? What do I got in my bag of tricks? That's all I come with, support. I don't shame nobody there, but a lot of what I'm doing is nervous system regulation and classroom management and SEL, which is social and emotional learning, because that's what's stopping them from doing it. And then if it's a curriculum, I'll be any standards you got, we'll run the standards out the wazoo. The standards, like, we'll get any standard, because why? How does this connect to the standards? That's the thing. I'm like, look, what is it? Do they need to show this in this conference? Read it to me. I'm like, sure, we're gonna do this in this clapping game that takes 3 minutes. Good. How do you do? I'm like, it's deceptive. I can do it quickly because I have years of it. It's just like when you play a lot, you can just, your first 2 notes your whole life experiences in between your choices. So that's what I do. I put all my experiences and I take in more experiences, and teachers are running me through the ringer, because they're hard, man. They're hard. I get not physical fault, but they question what I do so deeply. And I trigger a lot of them, to be totally honest, because they're like, well, you're making my brain feel. And I was like, what do you think your students are feeling? Same thing you're feeling. So I'm like, welcome, but I'm not harming you. I'm opening up you to a perspective and a vision of reality that you might not have seen, but it exists, right? We don't see the air, but take that sucker away, we're all struggling, so take music away, get rid of that, whole planet's gone. You know what I mean? We revolve around art, and that's the point of human existence. So I know I went off, but that's it. And to make sure that they can ground back that that's the creative thing that they're here to do. It's about more than just what they get out of school. And that when you do this, I don't want to say correctly, but when you do this from a deep place, this is something that changes lives and carries your being to something forever. And then you will then light that candle that becomes the one that lights the candle. And, I've been blessed to have my candle and flame amplified by experiences in life, rough ones, good ones, and in between ones. So that's what I'm really offering to teachers. How can they step in with, they don't have to be me. That's the problem. My journey was my journey. So I can think of it this way, but how can they be as authentic as possible and bring in other colors? So I'm like, bring me in, tap me in, coach. I'm cool. I'm another tone. I'm another mode, bring me in to offer that, so that's what I'm there to be of service, the same way I was of service to the students. I am of service to the teachers and to anyone who's willing to hear and listen to what is here, because I want to learn.
Yeah. Well, so I guess my question is kind of like, what are the core things that you want teachers to take when you come in, so it's not a one-off, right?
Yeah.
I hear you saying like there's a circle. I hear you saying like you really kind of playing with the kids, and I don't mean, but playing in a way where it's right. Learning is fun.
It's games. It's to make it engaging, to teach it in a more, So really, when it comes down to nuts and bolts, I always reference Gardner's 9 types of intelligence. spatial learning, emotional learning, auditory learning, visual learning, kinesthetic learning, right? These are ways we learn. And it's holding space for different modalities of teaching to happen. And it's about making your music space a place that people, including yourself, look forward to coming into. Now, it sounds so thing, but sometimes it's, oh, here we go. It's going to translate, and they're burnt out and they're up against a lot. They may be the one single music class that has an element and all they get is one 45-minute period a day with these students once a week, which in itself is a crime. So you're up against the wall. You're on defense. You got students with IEPs. You got all types of things. So what I'm doing is saying, what is the real goal here, and how can we simplify this to create the environment? And, it is a little blank because it is up to them to work on this with the students. I cannot give them an answer. I have thousands of examples, but every site I do and everything I write, it's custom made. I've had to be that way because you can't ignore the person. When I studied the great Duke Ellington, he's like, I need a sax. I need Johnny Hodges on this, and you have to look at your students as individuals, their voices in this orchestra. They are personality. There's going to be the student that I'm up, I'm ready to go. And there's going to be the student that and you have to respect those energies, the introverted and the extrovert. You have to learn how to dance with that. And that's what the greats did. It's really psychological, a lot of the music work, and it's holding space, and it does have to do, go into SEL, which is now what I end up teaching, which is like trauma-informed learning, because some people they're scared, especially the music. They're scared. Like I did the music thing at the museum. They were like, why, what key is it in? And I was like, it's a jam. It's okay. Like, I'm not going to tell you. Trust your ears. Like, okay. Is that right? They come in. and I'll be like, I'll say, no, it was B. And I'm like, I was messing with you. Right? You see, they're ready to shoot themselves metaphorically in the foot. And, because they're on edge. And I was like, what's going on here? But they've been indoctrinated with a wrong or right. And this has to do with institutionalization. Colonization is really deep. Our brains are literally being hijacked and our nervous systems are being hijacked. So a lot of what I have to do is nervous system regulation, low key. That's what it did, because I was like, why are they getting mad at me? Why the teachers get? I'm like, whoa, I'm bringing in something that makes them feel really uncomfortable. But then I said, well, that's how I can resonate with you. And it's taught me so much because I've had to go through so many hoops, and I continue to do so. But I advocate for it because I trust in responsibilities responding to your ability. So I know I was given some very specific gifts that are different, and I'm not seeing them. So I'm a big giver because I've received so much. I've received so much information from these students, so much information from my femtors and mentors in music, so much inspiration from this very conversation. And because my cup is full, I can offer it. So I'm there to offer to those teachers methods, but it is rooted a lot in, it does go down to the nervous system a lot when I really think about it. Multiple intelligences, different modalities, thinking of it as a pedagogy and a learning method, identifying goals, and also like how can you create a conducive environment where things can thrive, facilitation versus instruction, and then agreeing upon goals in a community agreement with your students, and then achieving those goals through micro steps. And what those steps are up to you guys to decide. I cannot tell you that. They want me to write, and I've written curriculum, put this here, put this here, and it doesn't work because you're painting by numbers at that place. That's like playing those instruments that are like, you can't play out because everything like a steel, it always has a note, like a hand drum. They just put the 5 notes of the pentatonic scale. So whatever you do just stays in there. But you got to be willing to make those mistakes and play those out there rhythms and out there things. And that's where the beauty is found, and then ask, why did you choose that? And it does change what they teach and how they teach. And to be honest, some are with it and some are not. And I'm okay with either or. I fully respect, once again, I love opera, I love classical, I love these things, and they have a deep place in my heart and in culture. But I also feel like it's just a sliver of what it is. You want to be able to allow people to discover, and then you can pick up your groceries. So I'm helping the teachers, I'm listening to their challenges and problems, and then really problem solving the most to answer it in that way. But then now I've been training other people in this cipher pedagogy, would like to write a book on it. I've started to talk with NAFME now, awesome. National Association, shout out to Cecil Adderley, another great mentor, who really just told me, he's like, wow, you have something really, really different that I think needs to be put on the national level. And I was like, all right, well, tell me what it is. It's like, I got spinach in my teeth and somebody pointed it out. I don't know what it is. And that's where my humility comes from. It's just, I'm obsessed with learning, but school was never the place I got it. I just see, this life as my teacher, and I want to learn, and I want to grow, and I want to explore what I don't know. And that's the curiosity that allows me to connect to students in that. So that's what I offer that teacher. You know, I will fill the water till the clay can wiggle again, and see what they choose to do, and support them in whatever way their environment and their spirit allows them to do, and come with that listening space.
Something I feel like I hear you say over and over again in different ways is just you're really listening to people and seeking to understand, and then, you know, matching puzzle pieces like, oh, you think this way. You know? Yeah, but it is. And like you said, that's the rewarding thing. That's why I'm a teacher. When I when I connect with someone that I couldn't for a while, it's like, oh, you know, we made a connection. So yeah. Yep.
In my reactions over here, guys. It's using the different things to communicate. It's communication, it's dialogue, it's conversation. And when you make it that simple, which I don't know why scares so many people, it becomes accessible.
Yep.
You ask somebody, what's your favorite food? What's your favorite song, right? There's no wrong way to answer those things.
Yeah.
And then you could say, then you talk about the ingredients to the song, or the ingredients to the food, or the whatever you're doing. And then we as humans, we're more alike than different. And you can connect to people on that. That's why when they think, see, my cat agrees, she's up here, there it is. I deal with unexpected parts, right? You know,
yeah.
And then, you know, we deal with it. And you know, a lot of it is unlearning. To really break it down to what I really end up doing is showing them what they know and the methods they know, valuing those methods, but also giving them more tools. And then seeing how their minds can start to develop so they can create the tools. I can give them that, but I want to create the mindset. They'll make hundreds of icebreakers and warm-up activities and those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what you've had another couple through lines, but with people, that idea of like, no, it's done this way, it's right or it's wrong. You know, I see that so much with the like the music education majors I work with, the undergraduate students. And
yes.
You know, they come into my class, I'm like, music is fun. Do you not like
we call it playing music,
right?
We forget music is called, they almost said it's playing music. How can
right. Right. You know,
so we
I'm
we
sitting
can't
there
take we can't take the fun out of it, the fun out of the fundamentals, the fun out of the foundation.
Right,
you know, like it's the fountain of youth. It's there, it's in there, but you got to go back to those things and literally built upon.
Yeah, but then to get through music school, it has to be perfect, and it's like, oh
yeah, and that's why enrollments are down. I'm working with Berkeley. They're like, why our numbers are down? Because they ain't coming to school for guitar performance no more. They want to go for Ableton and music production. They don't want to be $100,000 in debt. And and then not everybody's trying to go into the pit of the orchestra or sing choir in Carnegie. You know, that's a very small factor of what they want. And shout out to John Baptiste who go to Juilliard. Some of my mentors, Juilliard graduates, my man, Charles Gould, you know, he plays drums for Wynton Marsalis and everybody. So like, you know, and he's like, why? It's the most boringest thing I do. I don't know. It's different. It's different when you get to a certain point, because you get to the mountaintop and you're like, he's like, I just want to jam with you in the spot. And just because he's like, I over there, I'm a robot. And I'm like, man, he was a new school drop that was in Berkeley. He always had scholarships in there, and he went back to Juilliard, passed it, no problem, does everything. And, you know, I see these people and they struggle mentally, man. It's a lot of mental health around there because they did all these things to do all this to prove themselves. And then, you know, you're still playing at midnight for $60. And you know what I mean? It's some things, it's really, really, really dehumanizing. So, you know, I'm real about this, and I see people's pathways and their journeys as educators, and they teach because they need to pay bills now. And, you know, there's a real aspect to music education too. So shout out to all my educators that are within school systems and without too, because I know a lot of gigging musicians, you know, we do lessons and stuff to create this, you know, but that's how we stay good, you know what I mean? Or we grow, I should say, expand, because, you know, it's all taste. But yeah, I'm there with you guys on that.
Yeah. And we've had several guests talk about this idea of like amateurism, and that's what we really want for our students, right?
Yeah.
We want these amateurs who are doing it because they love it, because it's fun, and they find their path. But so in the schools, we have to be able to cultivate that kind of a mindset.
Yes, you're 100% right. And that takes reformatting how we do it. It's not what, it's the how. So I was like, you guys are actually doing what we're all meant to do, but how can we be more student-centered? How can we be more engaging? How can we be more fun? How can we be more open-minded? How can we be, you know, more conducive to the group looking forward to it, and how can we look at all types of music and cultural pedagogies. Once again, pedagogy is a big word I've had to develop and use, because that's the method of learning. So I just say, hey, it's a different use pedagogy, because they're used to scrolling on the TikToks and doing this now. So you got to meet them where they're at. But there's so many cool 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 7, 8, right? That is cool. Like, it evolves, and you see all the people tap pens with all the different musical rhythms. Strawberry pizza, You can teach all this. It evolves, but we're still. It's all fundamentals: rhythm, pitch, melody, harmony. Right? We're all going in the basics of what sound is. So I feel like ground in that, and then build from that, and make sure that that's what your heart, like when you talk. My first thing in class is always like this, with or without teach. I say, close your eyes, put your hand on your heart. Does everyone feel a beat? Yes. I was like, now whatever you're feeling right now, say something, 3, 2, 1 over that beat. Ooh, you just composed over a beat. You're officially a musician. So let's remember that. I start with that, and then I'm like, yeah, it's not your instrument. It's not that. It's you. You got a groove going on at a tempo. Literally beats per minute. When you're at certain emotional levels, your heart rate is at, and you talk, woo, right? You get excited, woo, you shoot yourself up there. Why do we forget this? This is done in language. The same way that you learn to speak is the same way you learn to play. That's why it has to be more connected to not this. It is a barrier that's created, I noticed. And I just never had that barrier. So like, I feel capable of doing everything. And that's something that intrinsically was there. I don't think I'm the best, but I just know that I can. If it can be done by someone, we can access that information, so I'm excited about that. And I like situations where I get my behind kicked artistically, because I just, what was that? I sit on that for 2 weeks, and now I'm just opening up or using my pinky to be like, wow, what was this trill little thing that came up, right? You get excited. And once you get that excitement, whoo-wee, brakes come off, and magic happens, and you get to witness that experience, which is, I think, why we all, as kids, we all pick up crayons and draw, bang a drum. We do this. This is what we do as humans. We all start as artists. I strive to take people back to that place and create from that space. Then once you do that and you've done it, now it becomes easy. But when you start from your analytical mind and what you've been taught in school, and that, you're kind of starting from this wrong or right space. And that I was like, why are they always in the wrong or right? And I was like, oh, it's because you did this, you got your master's, you got doctorates, you got that, and they told you, and look, you spent 500 grand on your education and this, I'd probably hold on to it for your life too. But fortunately, we get to let it go, and we get to use that as a way to expand. And I'm for the expansion of humanity, as art does, so we're there. Shout out to our music teachers.
Sometimes when I start talking to teachers about, more agency for students, more creativity, they think that I'm trying to say, we need to stop doing band, chorus, and orchestra.
Yes.
Right. Do you get that too?
I want you to tell me about that. Tell me your experience on this, because they thought I'm trying to say, oh, wait. They talk to me because they see how everyone was, and that one will come to me. But I want to hear you, and then I'll veg you back off of it to
essentially it's like you're trying to get rid of my job. You're trying to say that we can't do band. You're trying, like, I'm not trying to say that. I'm just trying to get you to think about what else band could be, right? And how else we could. So tell me, like, what are your experiences with those kind of conversations?
Flowers, give me some flowers, love, right there, right?
Awesome.
You're a disruptor. You're a disruptor, love. That's what it is. You disrupted a cognitive pathway in their mind. And yes, this does go to neuroscience, because this pathway was taught to them. And imagine if you was private lessons age 3 to 5, all the way to this, plus this music ed, plus your doctor. Truly, that's your identity.
Right.
That's what I realized I was coming against. And I was like, oh, I'm threatening their identity, because I'm like, they're reacting like I'm about to punch them in the face. Why is that? I don't understand. I'm just telling them to teach a scale in a different way. I'm not saying not, but they were like, yeah, they told me, oh, you're trying to. And I said, no. I'm like, well, when you do, I was like, what'd you do? Orchestra? Okay. So do you ever in the beginning, you guys tune to concert pitch A, right? Okay. When you're doing the tuning, you imagine just everybody getting one measure. What if everybody did one measure? Say, all right, guys, before we start today, we're going to just throw on a little metronome or something. Everybody just go around, 1, 2, 3, just 1 bar each, just where you're at today. You got 60 people in that, you can do something. And then now you're starting from a space. How's everybody feel today? Well, you know what? Let's take the first 4 bars of this piece and let's see, well, you know what are y'all feeling? Let's see the bass in this. Let's do this. Let's talk about arrangement. Right? So you can approach it in a very loving cipher, way. And just like a cipher in a circle, back to this, a community regulates itself, right? There was elders in there. Hey, we're doing this. But if you just say, no, I'm the hold it all, ready, one, it becomes like Whiplash, like that kind of movie. Where, not my one, right? And he sets him up so bad in that movie. So that movie represents, I think, a lot of things in music education. It's a little hyperbole, but sometimes it's like that, and that fear is there. So I'm reminding him, long live the orchestras. I'm here, long live the sight reading, long live it all. But we got to learn how to approach it in a different way. And that's why I reference a lot of this stuff on TikTok now that's showing visuals. They have cutouts on paper and they're showing the notes, and they're making pitches from putting glasses with water and tapping on it. It's incredible. And it's the same thing we're teaching. It comes down to timbre, harmony, everything. It's all the things that music are made out of. So that's not going nowhere. It never will. So I feel like that's a big part of what I have to tell them. No, we're not getting rid of what you do, but how's your numbers looking? What's happening now? Oh, you had these students, and one semester later, no one wants to join anymore. And you want to just teach this way? And this means that you're not allowing students to access that relationship that we talked about earlier. And I said, what would happen if that? And you're holding your way as superior. And that threatens some people's identity, because some people do this work, unfortunately, from a place of, I'm the authority, I am this, and I've built my career on this, I have accolades on it. Musicians do this too, and they become very hard to deal with. And people and I know they're like, I don't want to ever play with this one, because when they go there, I'm feeling dehumanized. Then I was supposed to do this and this because they're the big star. And I'm not going to mention names, but I seen it. It's in the music industry. It's in the music education. I have this doctorate. I'm from this school of music. Now, you don't tell me, because they put their identity in that. And I was like, look, bro, I know some cat who's up the block from Jamaica, Queens, that's got perfect pitch that will run you through the ringer. So I don't know why, when there's some 7-year-old prodigy who's playing all class, how is a 7-year-old playing all of these pieces? They didn't live long enough. Something is activated in their organism. I said, go watch child prodigies for a minute. They smoke everybody and they go insane, and and I'm like, how is this possible? How is this 8-year-old doing something that other people trained to? Is they've accessed something. Now there's a key that I believe that this is something I'm really getting into. I think there's ways to access that way of learning through neurological switching, because I've been able to make leaps in music that I never thought were possible. And when that's why I got into studying the mind, because I realized, whoa, they unlock something, but you can unlock it too, but you have to unlock yourself, So some things that look at the way kids are learning. They're doing things in a very short time that took people a long time to learn, because their relationship with time, which is music, which is meter. I'm going there, guys. I told you I was going to go to outer space. It is breaking the space-time continuum. And this is saying this in a very honest way, because when you're playing with people, look at a minute of playing music versus a minute when you're in the DMV or something. That's not the same minute.
Yeah.
It is not. You experience time differently when you're on the subway train and the thing is stuck. 5 minutes will be an eternity. When you're playing music, you'll be on the bandstand for an hour and you'll say it was 5 minutes. So, and this is how we're experiencing time. So that's also music, right? Timing and feel, right? So how can we create that? And that's why I say, I do respect. And if they're going to say bad things or be threatened, I have to sometimes let it go. Sometimes they've come back a year later, 2 years later. It's okay. But I have to let them know, I'm not attacking you. I'm not harming you. I'm not devaluing you. I believe in what you do. I just want to offer you a perspective, because are you here for your students and to learn, or do you still want to be a student, or do you know everything? So you know everything about music, right? Okay. So why are you doing a job you don't want to do? That's a deep one. Not everybody's meant for this job too. And we should all go where we're meant to. Because if you're going to dehumanize a kid or say this and this, I don't think this is the right profession for you. I don't. People ask me, I'm like, look, I love it. I'll speak to you guys till the cows come home on this, because I love this. But you don't want to be there. You want it to be Yo-Yo Ma on the cello, and you ain't get that. You don't take that out on some kids. And that's serious. That's another part I had to come to. And I was like, wait a minute. You're triggered. And that's what got me into social emotional learning, because I'm like, what's happening? And I want to work through it with them. Because just like a good brother and sister, you're going to get into an argument. It's just about how can we work through it. And this is what's hard about working with adults for me, to be honest, because I'm very open to all their methods. I'm like, show me your method. I'll learn your method, but how come I can learn everything you want to teach? But when it comes to the stuff I'm doing with circles and student led, you don't want to do none of that. I was like, we're going on something here, and this might take you to therapy to unpack that. And this is serious. It's funny, but it's true, because some people, they're very authoritative from a place of lack or low self-esteem, or they're going through something, or they want it to be something that they never did, and they're in this place 40 to 60 hours a week, and now they're taking it out on kids, man. And I do not teach music to kids anymore because I'm in more artist phase, but I train the teachers because it's more efficient. If I could get one person to take 100th of what I offer and they go to 20 kids and this, by numbers, I'm there. But now I have to deal with the harder part of dealing with adults. So look at me, even in my artistic journey of this, it's hard. And I do acknowledge that, but you're going to have challenges in whatever you do, and you want to grow. You want to step up. I don't want to do what I did 10 years ago when I first started doing this. I want to go to another levels and create. So I think that intrinsic motivation is there. So I love it, guys. I'm with it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. This has been so good. All right. So if you had something that you could suggest teachers do tomorrow, what's that one little quick actionable? And we're going to pretend that this is the fall and they're, going into their classroom tomorrow, all excited after hearing you. What's that one thing they could try?
Listen more than you speak. Listen. Go make it centered on their experience. Be a facilitator over an instructor. Create an environment that the art thrives in. Because when that art thrives, the art teaches us all. The music will teach you. It will show you, it will guide you, it'll show you your next steps, it'll show you what you need to improve on, it'll show you what you're really good at. The art will trust in the process, and trust in the sound and the art and the groove. Trust in that. And when you feel it, it's undeniable. And everyone has that experience to music. Don't make it more than that. Please go back to Happy Birthday. Go back to like something you sing when you're just in the shower, and remember that that's the true connection of music. The technical proficiency and mastery comes from how well you can tell the story. And that comes from a deep awareness. So they have it in them. Our job is not to be the banking model of education. I reference Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed a lot. But let it go, and you'd be surprised what naturally comes out. And let the art guide you guys. Don't forget why you picked up that instrument for the first time or sang for the first time. Don't lose that reason and make it this hyper play music. Play music. And then all that other stuff, the order and it's going to come, because it regulates itself when you learn the piece. It will do it. So you have to let go. You don't do that. The art does that, and it teaches you, and then it comes. It's the recycling symbol. It's a circle. It's a cipher. And hit me up if you need more information. I'm willing to, if you're ready to unplug, because if you're happy with the way things are going, all right, like Theresa, we can't, we're not here to fight with anybody on this. We're peace and love over here. But for the people who are willing to adapt and, open up a new, it's there. And your students are there because they're not having it. They're not with any, the world that we grew up in is not the world that they're going.
No,
so we have to eat the humble pie on that one. We try to act, no, everyone's doing good. We're talking to each other from across the country on Zoom. 5 years ago, this wasn't it. Look how it builds on each other. So allow them to teach you about how they're accessing music, whether that's TikTok or whatever. And then you, as a master of your craft, you draw those connections to those lines and build it around that center that you all agree on, which is the love for the craft. And that love will regulate it just like a good relationship regulates it. So that's it. Keep your mind open, listen to your students, listen more than you speak, and get in there, get obsessed and fall in love, and, allow a little chaos, let it happen, and then bring it back to the structure. Balance the left and right brain. You cannot make this all left brain analytical play perfect. You're dismissing literally more than half of this, so don't dismiss what it is, and it'll come. Those people who want that, I'm for that. That's why I always say I'm for the technical proficiency. I'm for it, but it'll come. If you want more of it, actually do it this way. It'll produce it at a more rapid rate, and at a very life-changing experience for you. And you should be changed. That's also what I tell music teachers. When you go in there in September, you should be looking forward and you should feel like this is a new, exciting thing. Just like anytime I go to my instrument or anything, and if it's not there, I do something else. I go cook. And then when it screams at me, yo, come here, let's go. Or I have an experience. Translate that. Thank you guys.
Yeah. Why, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for taking some time with us.
No, I like it anytime, anything you guys need. Once I hear it's about this stuff and the fact that you guys got a platform that people are willing to hear, that's it. I just came and showed it as authentic as, and yes, for the people who watch this and see it was a little, that's what it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to, you don't get the song after listening to it once. You hear a song 10 years later, but what was that little, you know what I mean, in there? Listen to it back because it's in here. It's in here with us three. We're all three people that love music and want to share that. And all of you are doing a great job. So I want to say thank you to anyone who takes the time to watch it. Thank you to anyone who dedicates their life to spread the art of music and love. But, look at yourself and know why you're doing it. And just like you said, Kathryn, the best feeling and best reward is to light that other candle and to see someone else find their relationship to it, or them to show you something that you didn't know, so let yourself be taught by your students,
Yeah. Well, how can people connect with you if they want to?
Yep, I got
more.
This creativeexpressions.co. And I'm there. Once again, I give examples of curriculum, but everything I do is custom tailored because it has to be to your situation. I am a licensed DOE vendor. I'm registered as an MWBE business on the New York City portal, and I've worked nationally and internationally, but I'm here. I have an intake form. If you hit the contact thing where you can tell me, I do free 30-minute consultations with anybody just to listen. So you go to the website, hit the contact, reach out to me, and now I'm training. We got a couple artivists on the staff, and we'll talk about the situation. I do move and travel wherever needed, so it's not just for people in New York. The word needs to get out there. If you have a space that's willing to be a thriving music hub, I will figure out how we can help you virtually find artists on the ground. We'll get you what you need. And I have to do the same thing I said. I have to listen to your story, listen to your situation, whether band, choir, orchestra, after school club, day school elective, Berkeley college level, whatever you need. I'm here to listen first, and then we co-create. So that's what it's going to be. I don't have a one-size-fits-all answer, but I have tools. And if you let me know, I'm like, well, okay, you got this nail, let's bring the hammer out. You got the screw, let's get the screwdriver out. You need to get the screw in fast, we're using a drill. There's a tool for all of this, and I'm here to listen and learn and support you, because music educators should be supported the same way they support their students. I think there's a big lack of that. They need artists back in the classroom. The Muppets had the great musicians come on the Muppets. I always say Jim Henson had it figured out in the 70s, about what was there, and look, Ralph played the keys, Gonzo was on the trumpet, Kermit was on. They were specific. Animal was a drummer. Like, things are like that. Like, it's real deep. And I make those comparatives and I make it fun, crack jokes, be who you are. And I'll help you if you need any help. I'm always willing to listen. So contact, my email is Yogi, Y-O-G-I, at creativeexpressions.co. And once again, creativeexpressions.co. It's what it is. And I would love to hear from anybody who's willing to, if you felt something, reach out and then let's take it from there. Don't hesitate. Showing up is 90% of it. And then put in the work and you'll be there. But just come through and listen to that answer. I'm here to listen and help however I can, for educators, institutions, whoever, anybody who's willing to take on, or if this resonates with you, reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I know this has just been so much fun and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, there goes the hearts. There you go.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you guys so much. And of course, I'm going to give you guys your flowers. Where are my flower emojis? Thank y'all for doing the work and spreading the word and letting people know that people like me exist in this planet for a limited time. So I'm here. I'm here to be utilized, and I appreciate the work that both of you guys are doing. And any way I can be of service to you guys or collaborate, please do not hesitate. I would love to learn and be a part of it with you guys.
Thanks for joining us. If you have found value in our conversation, please hit that like button, subscribe to our podcast, and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us grow our community of passionate music educators.